Grown Man Business. It's your boy Quan Jeezy, man, and I am here with my dog Reggie, and we have a special guest here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The chairman, Mr. Oz Nesbitt. How you doing today?
Man, it's so good to be here at WMRR Radio. I want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing in the community in Rockdale County and the city of Conyers.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you always willing to reach out and communicate with us so we can get things done.
Well, that's what it's really all about, getting things done. And the real connectivity of a community, Reg, is really not about people who are in elected positions, but it's folks like you guys who are out on the ground where the people are, who are touching the people, putting the work in on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, sir.
And you actually support what I'm able to do because I'm able to listen to you and hear what's happening in the streets on the ground. Yes, you serving as a conduit to get to me so that I can make sure that the policies, the procedures, and the things that we're trying to bring in the community all connected.
Yes, sir.
So that's what it's all about. So thank you for your leadership. Because a lot of times folks think, Reggie, you got to be an elected official to be a leader. That's not true.
That's not.
You're right.
That's not true.
Right. So we do, and I tell you, man, one thing I can tell you about Mr. Oz, you can reach out to him anytime. He's going to communicate with you. He's an open book, and he's going to always work with you. So I appreciate that, Mr. Oz.
Well, it's about connectivity, like I said, and being able to be responsive and accessible to people. When I was coming along as a young kid, I remember the folks at church and the folks in the neighborhood or the grown folks and the older folks always talking about the local politicians not being accessible when they needed them.
Right.
But you would see them when it was election time.
Right.
So it's been part of my personal goal, to be honest with you, to make sure that I'm always accessible to the people. And we got to tell them the best way to reach me is
Sell
and text.
Absolutely. Gonna always
listen, Reggie, I tell people all the time, if you call me, you're gonna be cussing.
Yeah.
Text is best.
Correct.
And let me take a moment and explain why.
Go ahead.
I realize that you cannot put everything in a text.
Correct.
But I also like to use text to force people to think. Get to the point.
Key point.
Tell me what it is.
Exactly.
Tell me what you want.
Absolutely.
Right. And here's the other thing. I can multitask with a text message while I'm sitting in a meeting. If I'm sitting in a meeting, I can't pick up the phone and start talking to you in the middle of a meeting.
Correct.
But I can kind of text a little bit, get to the point, even if I have to direct you to some other resource or some other person.
I can just tell you I'm gonna get right back with you.
Or tell you I can get right back with you. But I really want you to go ahead, Reggie, and just tell me what it is you want.
Get to the point.
So I go instead of you waiting till 2 or 3 hours or at the end of my workday, you go and tell me right now what it is you're trying to do. Get to the point. Correct. And I can help you. I don't even have to pick up the phone to ever talk to you. We can text our way through any problem, issue, or any celebration. Because I like people to text me about good news too.
Yeah, I already know about it, man.
Tell me something good.
Tell me something good. So, but thank you for always staying in touch and texting me and making sure that I'm relevant and real and raw about what's happening in Rockdale County.
Hey, we have to do that, man. You have to be real, raw, and a people's person, man. Down to earth. How was it growing up in Augusta? Can you tell us something about that?
Well, it was a good life. First, let me start off. It was a good life. When I think about growing up in Augusta, Augusta, Georgia is known for two things. Primarily the Masters Golf Tournament that takes place each year. It's the biggest, most prestigious golf tournament in the world. But the biggest and the baddest thing we're known for is the hometown of the late, great Godfather soul, James Brown. Absolutely. And usually I tell that story first. I'm a James Brown boy through and through. I knew Mr. Brown as a young kid growing up. I would see him. Yeah, I would see him in the community. I never get. Mr. Brown had the baddest cars too, and two cars that stand out in my head. I never get one summer. He was driving around. He himself was driving around in a purple dune buggy. I mean, man, this thing the purple was so purple. It was that Concord grape. It looked like it was wet. It just looked good. And he had on his nice brim. And he was just, and guess what? He was in the hood with the regular people. That's one thing I always appreciated about Mr. Brown. There were a few times you see him with some security, but for the most part, Mr. James Brown, he was personal. He was doing his own thing. The second car he had that stood out was a red candy apple red Chevrolet Nova. And when I tell you, it looked like it had just came out of the paint shop. That thing was slick. It was wet. It was in
it was like one of them 70 something.
It had to be like a 76 model candy apple red Chevrolet Nova. Man, Mr. Oh man, he had a mean car collection.
You know,
everybody knew it.
Yeah. The first one had that private jet.
He was the first black entertainer with his own private jet. So Augusta, Georgia is my hometown. I'm very proud of Augusta. I went to one of the two most predominant black high schools in Augusta. The two schools were Laney and T.W. Josie. I graduated from T.W. Josie. My life started, I grew up in public housing, in the projects.
Okay.
In fact, Georgia's oldest at that time was Georgia's oldest public housing development, which was built in 1939. Built in 1939, Sunset Homes, 410 units. Oh, I know my history, baby.
Yes,
absolutely. And I'm a proud product of public housing because so many productive people came out of the projects, came out of public housing. I always tell people, never judge a book by its cover. You never know who's from where. My grandmother would always say this, Reggie. She'd say, don't you get amnesia. In other words,
where you come from.
Don't forget where you come from.
That's right.
So a lot of folks don't really want to tell the true story about who they are, where they come from. I know what government cheese is. I've had a couple of glasses of cold sugar water.
I hear that.
I still eat Vienna sausages, and every now and then I might get a craving for some potted meat. Every now and then, and some crackers. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
I was one of those kids that stood in the line. It was called the government Feed a Kid program. Feed a Kid program. And it was a summer program that during the summer months, a lot of people in our communities, and particularly in the public housing settings, this Feed a Kid program came around, and they had box lunches. And they were very nutritious box lunches with a sandwich.
Not Lunchables now.
No, they weren't Lunchables.
No Lunchables.
Look, that was a brown bag.
It was a brown. Well, this was a brown box. It was a brown box.
By the time they got there, it was a brown box.
It had. Well, let me tell you, it had a sandwich in it. You had an apple or orange or a plum. You had some juice in it. It was a full-fledged lunch, but it really supported the parents back then who were on a fixed income or perhaps on government assistance, and that lunch really served the gap between breakfast and dinner, particularly for our parents who was working. So me and my two brothers, we stood proudly in the Feed a Kid line, and we didn't see it as a handout. It was an opportunity for us to get in the line and joke and jive with our friends and have a good time. Coming from Augusta, Georgia, I spent right out of high school. I joined the sheriff's office and became a police officer at an extremely young age. In fact, I was only a measly 18 years old.
Wow!
I spent from age 18 the next 15 years of my young adult life as a cop. I worked on the streets of Augusta during the time that crack cocaine had taken over the streets of Augusta, just like it had many urban cities throughout the U.S.
The impact would have hit harder because you coming from a small town, correct?
No. Augusta is the second largest city in the state of Georgia.
You know, at that time right there, man, you know, it was booming.
Boom,
yeah. Because at that time right there, Atlanta hadn't really developed as the Atlanta what you see right now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Augusta and Macon, they really popping just as hard as Atlanta is.
Yeah. And Reggie's absolutely right. Augusta is the second largest city in the state, still to this day, over 300,000 folks. So I worked with the sheriff's office back then. In fact, Richmond County Sheriff's Office is the largest full service sheriff's office in the entire state of Georgia, even over and above Fulton County. Wow. In terms of the sheriff's office, I was one of 800 deputies, and this was during the 80s and the 90s. I survived working the streets. I was from the hood, so I was able to identify with a lot of the street activity, what was going on, and really, what saved my life, I like to say, during that time was what I call the 3 A's. The letter A: attitude, approach, and appearance. It's all about how you approach people, how you talk to people, the right attitude, regardless of what side of the track. Building that rapport and building relationships with people will equal respect. When people know that you have their best interests, there were times when I had to do what I had to do because I'm a cop. I got to do what I got to do. But for the most part, It was the 3 A's: the right attitude, having the right approach, and the right appearance. And
Say that again. Say that again.
Having the right attitude, having the right approach,
Okay.
and the right appearance.
Okay, the right attitude, the right approach, and the right appearance.
I don't know how much time.
I got to clap to that.
Thank you. I don't know how much time we have on the air, but let me just give this. I'm gonna give you a very condensed version of each one of those 3 A's. Having the right attitude. First of all, attitude is everything. Most of the time when people think of the word attitude, they almost think of something negative. But attitude can be both positive or negative. It's all up to you. And I'm really talking about your attitude, not your wife, not your girlfriend, not your boo, not your teacher, not your preacher, not your coach, but your attitude. The second A word is the word approach. Watch this. Now, I'm old school, okay? I was raised by one of those moms. All she had to do was just look at us. 80% of all communication is nonverbal. Let me say it again. 80% of all communication is nonverbal. Reggie, my mama could just look at me and my 2 brothers. Boy, we knew exactly what she was saying.
You already knew it.
We knew to shut up, sit down, be quiet, and was none of this stuff called why this and why that. Man, when my mama told me and my 2 brothers that I will knock your head off your body, we believed it.
Yeah.
We truly believed it. And guess what? We believed it so to the point that we were never going to test her.
Hey, old school parents don't play back.